Thank you very much. Thanks very much indeed. And well now, I am sure that we are all familiar with the phrase...
That's about as useful as a chocolate teapot.
That's right, the chocolate teapot as the general go-to comparative standard to describe the failure of an object. It's up there with...
That's about as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike.
Not to mention the gold standard...
That's about as useful as a one-legged man in an arse-kicking contest.
An event that, for my money, they really missed out on in the Paralympics. But now, you see, with this week's news, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have another phrase that is ready to join the lexicon.
That's about as useful as Apple bloody maps.
Yeah. Apple bloody maps. A map app that doesn't so much map maps as crap on maps due to its gaps. Now, if you're not familiar with Apple Maps, let me explain what it is, OK? It's a thing on an iPhone which in the last upgrade sort of made a compulsory purchase order of the far superior Google Maps and then set about redesigning the planet to make it unrecognisable. This week in Australia, police have issued a warning about Apple Maps after drivers using their iPhones to find a town have ended up hopelessly lost in the outback in scorching temperatures and have had to be rescued. The town they were looking for is called Mildura. It has a population of 30,000. It sits in the middle of Australia in exactly the place that Apple Maps says it doesn't. In fact, Mildura is 70 kilometres away from where Apple Maps says it is, and where it says it is in fact just a boiling dust bowl of hot sand with no phone signal. They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, it would if he was using their maps. Google Maps have now, this week, released a new app in order to counter this, and it's a good thing as well. For instance, on Google Maps, if you look up, I don't know, Berlin, it is largely where you'd expect it to be, in Berlin, in Germany. Look up Berlin on Apple Maps, however, and you'll find it in Antarctica. It also puts Nuremberg in Vienna, Basingstoke in a field miles away from Basingstoke, and Sweden's second largest city, Gothenburg, simply isn't there anymore. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, although, of course, you'd be hard-pressed to find the tip of the iceberg, given that Apple Maps has probably placed the iceberg in the space normally reserved for Berlin.
Ich bin ein Penguin.
Thank you. Now, elsewhere, this kind of thing doesn't really matter much, of course. Here, for example, I mean, if you set out to drive to Nuneaton and end up 45 miles away, this would be considered a bonus. Although, of course, you'd still have no phone signal wherever you were because you'd be using an iPhone, and as anyone who owns an iPhone knows, most of the time you may as well be just trying to make a call on your kettle. Or your chocolate teapot. Now, Apple have apologised for the Map app, but I think what they should do is just come clean about the iPhone's ability to be an actual phone.
The iPhone. It's brilliant at everything apart from actually being a phone.
I need to make a call.
Who needs calls? It's got apps. Most are good, not the Maps one.
It's got the word phone in its name. Can I receive a call?
No, but that's not the iPhone. You're out of signal area.
Yeah, but I'm standing next to someone with a BlackBerry on the same network and they've got 5 bars.
It's got Siri, the handy voice control assistant.
I hate Siri, I don't want it.
He can remind you to call the vet.
I don't want to call the vet.
This is your reminder to call the vet.
All right. OK, I'll call your bluff. Call the vet.
I can't. There's no signal on your iPhone.
Now, even London hasn't escaped the curse of Apple Maps, all right? I looked yesterday, and Aldwych Station, which closed in 1994, is now fully open again and is in the middle of St James's Park. Brilliantly, on London Underground, where staff routinely write information in wipeable marker pen on whiteboards, there's a very funny one, where staff have written...
For the benefit of passengers using Apple OS 6, local area maps on paper are available from the booking office.
Now, frankly, if London Underground are taking the piss out of you, you really are in trouble. Basically, Apple Maps' knowledge bank of countries, world cities and places is the technological equivalent of pulling over to ask directions and getting a vacant look from a stranger. It's like getting a world view straight from the brain of someone who lives in the southern states of America who doesn't have a passport and thinks that licking the side of their own truck is a fantastical adventure. It's like the app was designed by someone going, "Where is Britain? Britain, you ever heard of that?"
I don't reckon I have. Is that out in the farm road past Ike's place?
No, I just looked at one of them newfangled Apple Maps this morning, and all that's out there is Berlin.
Of course, in the UK, we've probably adapted better than most, as we're quite used to things not being where they say they are.
Welcome to London Stansted, where the time is 08:55.
Excuse me, stewardess, is this London?
It's London Stansted.
So it's London.
No.
Why is it called London?
I don't know. Why is your friend licking the plane?
Things aren't always called what they are, and actually I can think of worse examples of things being given the wrong name, OK? I read this on Twitter this week. This is great, right? Radio 4's very own Matthew Sweet, he presents The Philosopher's Arms. He wrote on Twitter of his neighbour's 7-year-old, OK, who came home from school, one of her first biology lessons that she had at school, absolutely furious, right? Shouting, "You lied to me, Mummy, you lied, it's not called a mini-moo, it's called a burgina." In case you're wondering, by the way, Burgina is also in Antarctica, just outside Berlin. Thanks very much.